question what my thoughts were on blended families. And blended families come in a variety of different interpretations, I guess. You could have a husband who has a father who has 3 kids and then marries a wife, and then they bear a child of their own. So they have technically stepbrothers and sisters. You can have adult children with a mother and adult children with a father, and then the father and mother get married, and so then there's adult stepchildren. That's my situation. I have a stepfather and step siblings. So there's many different ways that blended families can come across, and I think it's a good question, because some Christians don't think that like the one family that you get is the only one that you should have. Like the wife is the only one that you'll ever be able to marry, and all of these things. There's kind of no second chances, I guess. That's some extreme ways of thinking. I don't think that way. I don't believe that what you get is the only chance that you'll ever get of having a family, or all these other components, or not having a second chance, and those kind of things. So for instance, my mum, she was adopted when she was very young. I think it was about 2 years old she was adopted. And so my mum, her name is Cindy. So Cindy's mum, biological mum, was married, and her biological mum then ran away with another man, and her partner and my biological grandma, I guess, had my mum and her sister. So Cindy and her sister, they lived in New South Wales, and the partner of my mum's mum he was a very heavy drinker and abused the mum and Cindy and her sister at times, and Cindy's mum got an amount of money to be able to bring them back to Tasmania, where she knew my nan and pa, who were the ones that adopted Cindy and her sister. Now, my nan and pa had 2 kids of their own, but they got a word from God to say, and it said, "I want you to love on other people's kids." And so Cindy and her sister got adopted, and were loved by nan and pa. Now, they also had, I think it was 8 other adopted kids. And so all up, there was about 10. I think they had 2 more that kind of came when they were a bit older, but then left. So I think it was around about 12 kids that they had, that they adopted. And the point that I want to get across with that is, if my mum wasn't allowed a second chance, I wouldn't be born. I wouldn't have amazing cousins that I love so dearly. I wouldn't have a nan and pa that nurture me, that pray for me all the time, and love me just as much. And they're absolutely my nan and pa. Whether it's through blood or not, they are my nan and pa. And so I'm so grateful that they gave my mum and her sister a second chance, along with all these other kids that God said to love on. And I think that that's an amazing thing that happened. I know of a family who they can't have kids, and the wife unfortunately can't have kids, and so why wouldn't they be allowed to adopt a child, or go through another form of technology to be able to have those kids, to be able to have kids. And so I want to bring a verse to you that says, It's in Galatians, and it's 3 verse 28. And I've actually had this verse in my Galatians series that I did. And it says, "And we no longer see each other in a former state, Jew or non-Jew, rich or poor, male or female, because we're all one through our union with Jesus Christ, with no distinction between us." So I'm going to bring up another story, which is in the Bible, and it's in the book of Hosea. Now, Hosea was a prophet, and God told him to marry a prostitute. Now, that kind of doesn't make sense very much. And the thing is, even after the Hosea and the prostitute Gomer, is her name, got married, they had 3 kids, she continued to be a prostitute. And Hosea continued to forgive her and pick her up and actually pay the debts off of the men that she was with. So he was doing all of these things, right? And the story is a reflection on what God's forgiveness is of the Israelites of the time. So Hosea was in the Old Testament. Now, extend that out to the whole world. God's forgiveness over us all when we are sinful and we do the wrong thing, we continue to do the wrong thing, yet he continues to love us as a child of God, as his kids, as his children, and it doesn't matter what we do, he will still love us and forgive us. It gives us that second chance. Now, we live in a fallen world. Now, I also think, and I've caught myself out on this now, so I'm 22 years old and I'm divorced. I got married very young, and so was she, and 2 years later, we're divorced. Before that, there were people in our church that we were going to that were divorced and remarried. At the time, I was like, man, like, I don't know, like, you kind of had your chance of getting married, and you screwed it up. And I've been in that situation where you look at some of the guys or the girls that get divorced, and you kind of look at them and you're like, But now I'm in that situation. I am so utterly sorry that I thought that way. I actually feel very, very ashamed that I used to think that way. Now that I've become a divorced man, and I feel the label, I guess, of a divorced man, it really hurts me. And to think that I used to think that divorced men, it wasn't that I didn't think that they shouldn't have a second chance. Like, I guess underneath it all, I always believed that yes, everyone should have a second chance, but it was like let the single guys who aren't married, who might be getting older and that have a chance to get married, you know. And so I used to think, and I had this kind of slight, not anger, but a negative emotion towards it. And I'm like, I am so utterly sorry that I used to think that way. And under God, under who I am in a fallen world, he continues to love me. He continues to give me a second chance, a third, a fourth. I think I'm up to probably my 1 billionth chance, to be honest. And if there's a chance that a young girl whose mother died giving birth to her and now is raised by a father alone, and that young girl and that father get a second chance to have a mother and a wife for the rest of their life, that brings happiness, that brings love into that child's life and into that husband's heart. Absolutely, there should be a second chance. If my mum, which this is a true story, my mum lost her husband when he was 49, just before he turned 50. And I lost my dad when I was 15 years old. My mum has the whole next half of her life, assuming she lives to about 100. She has the whole half of her life. Absolutely, she should not have to live that alone. She's now remarried, and I have step brothers and sisters that I love, and I have a stepfather that, yes, he will never be my father, and mind you, he doesn't want to be my father, but he's a great friend and a great person that I love, and love that he loves on my mum. Absolutely, you should have second chances, third chances. That's my thought on blended families. We live in a fallen world. Bad things happen. Unfortunate things happen. Sometimes we can't help that. But if there is a chance to get some glimpse of happiness, of love, of good, and put that back in the world, absolutely that should happen. So guys, go be a blessing to someone else. Have an awesome day. I hope you got something out of this video, and we'll see you next time.